Hey Tally, are you enjoying the 9.1 PTR?
Hi Evie. Yeah, it's great.
Are you sure? You don't seem very happy. Did you do the new intro quests?
Yeah, they were good. Very exciting.
Do you like the new area?
Actually, I really do. Yeah, surprisingly.
Have you seen all the juicy new data mining?
Yeah, it's really great. It's been a really cool week.
So what's the matter?
Oh, well, you know, as a creator, it's my job to test everything. And, you know...
Oh, I see. Tally, I think you're going to like what I have to show you.
No, it can't be!
It is!
Is it really closed?
Yep! No one is going in or out of Torghast this build. You want to go and transmog some more shoulder pads?
This is the best PTR ever!
Knowledge is power.
Hello, Internet, Taliesin here, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset, Taliesin and Evertel's wondrous wisdom show, in a week where our cup truly runneth over with big news, fresh discoveries, and new content, because the 9.1 PTR is live. We have our first look at Chains of Domination, and I am not dicking around today, okay fam, because we have a lot to get through, maybe a little bit more than we might have expected. The whole of the new Moor area, Korthia, with all the new quests leading into it, and what seems like quite a lot of the story of the zone, the daily content in the new Moor. Raid testing has already begun, earlier than Blizz originally suggested it would, and of course, the usual deluge of Wowhead data mining that gives us even more insight both into the story, with some major spoilers, but also new items and powers, and basically I'm sitting here with a much firmer idea of what awaits players in 9.1 than I thought I might, and the TLDR is... I'm pretty excited. Here's how we're going to structure this episode. First off, I'm going to give you my first impressions of the patch after playing it solidly since Wednesday. The intro and gameplay and daily routine and just how it feels. And that's going to include some very mild BlueBot story spoilers, which are pretty much nothing, but which will be clearly warned about in advance. Next, we'll look at everything else that we've learned from the opening build of the PTR as it's presented, which is a lot of stuff, including when flying will be introduced, and then we'll look at what we've learned from the data mining of the new patch, which includes new models and gear systems, and then finally, we'll look at some pretty major REDBOT spoilers that have come out of data mining. All of these segments are marked in the chapters in the description, so you can find them easily on the progress bar. Even then, spoilers will be clearly marked, and of course Wowhead articles that we find especially interesting or relevant will be linked below too. So ladies and gentlemen of the internet, let us begin, at last, with patch 9.1, Chains of Domination, and our overall first impressions, because like I say, I've been playing this PTR pretty much non-stop since it hit, partly because it's my job. I have a responsibility as someone who talks about World of Warcraft to get in there and find out about the new patch, whether I want to or not, in a truly selfless act of bravery, sacrifice, and investigative journalism. And partly because it was new World of Warcraft content to play after what's going to be the longest opening patch of all time, and I desperately and greedily snatched and consumed the absolute shit out of it. Like, I injected that shit into my veins, and days later, as I emerge into these ludicrously bright lights to film this segment, there is one overriding emotion that I feel. Thank it's good. Now please, bear in mind the context here, okay? If a man has been crawling along on his hands and knees across a desert for the last 4 months with no food or water, and you rescue him and give him a nice cold beer, it's very likely that when you ask him, hey man, how's the beer? He's gonna say it's the best beer he's ever tasted, even if it's an American beer. So yeah, I have had a lot of fun with the PTR this week, but of course my job is to be a bit more objective than that and try and work out if this is a beautiful Moretti or Camden Hells or Belgian ale, or whether, you know, an American beer. So first up, I love the new story quests. The introduction sees players arriving in Oribos with its new skybox, showing the growing power of the Jailer and the Maw, before fighting through a cool scenario in Ardenweald as the Mawsworn attack with all their shiny new gold spiky models, and some very interesting story bits that we won't spoil here. And then into the new Maw, sneaking around with Venari, into the new area, Korthia, which the Jailer has yoinked out of the in-between and is searching for something important that we don't know what, but I can suspect what. We set up a new Waystone portal from Korthia to Oribos and back again, a new flight path from Venari's cave to her new Korthia cave, and get the newly united Covenant gang together to stake a claim on the land, unlocking ground mounts in the Maw, which feels so good, and totally disabling the Eye of the Jailer mechanic, and which sets up the day-to-day action of the zone, which is basically blue exclamation mark dailies, the slowly continuing and unfolding story, and the Covenant assaults, which see you helping out whichever Covenant is up with their assault on the Maw for a few quests. And these seem to rotate through a couple of different ones a week, kind of like the way the N'Zoth assaults worked in 8.3. Korthia, the new area itself, is fine. There's very heavy Macquarie vibes to it if you played 7.3. It's not huge, there's not a great variety, but it is different enough to be a nice palate cleanser from anywhere else in the Shadowlands, which surprised me because it doesn't really look that way in screenshots. One of those things where I guess you have to be there. The dailies and assaults are fine. There's nothing groundbreaking or new about them. You're killing shit, you're collecting shit. I'd like to see some more imagination or variety in them, but there's nothing wrong with them. The rewards, the reason you're doing all this, at the moment it's anima and gold and the new material that you'll need to upgrade your legendaries. More on that later. The dailies and assaults that you complete fill up the weekly Subdue the Jailer's efforts bar, and when that's completed, at the moment you get some catch-up gear. The item level of which it seems you can upgrade through the quartermaster of your new reputation for the Death's Advance faction. I'll be honest, it's all a little bit sparse at the moment. We're going to need all of this filled out a little bit. More on that later. Also, I think it's important to point out that although Korthia, being a new area, naturally has a very strong 0.2 patch vibe, but this is not a Nazjatar or Mechagon or Broken Shore. There's currently not a ton of secrets or rares or events. It's very much do those dailies, a few a day, keep up with the assaults, and wait for the story. Korthia is not the kind of place that you are going to spend all day in looking around after you've explored it once. And if all of that sounds kind of underwhelming, well, yeah, when I put it like that, I guess it kind of is. So why do I like it so much? Well, obviously because I'm very, very thirsty and this is some kind of beer, but honestly, and I fully appreciate this is very subjective and not everyone will feel the same, the whole thing just feels kind of epic. Because it's not just the new area that makes it seem like a 0.2 patch, it's the whole vibe of the story reaching a climax and getting ready to go in a completely different direction. It feels big, it feels important, having all the Covenants in the Maw fighting side by side, having an Acropolis in the skybox, discovering more about Korthia and its big, big lore. It just feels meaningful to me as a player, and that counts for a lot from an atmosphere point of view. We are trying to get into a place called the City of Secrets. The Jailer has something very important he's looking for. We know we will be fighting the Terragru, the Eye of the Jailer, Kel'Thuzad, Ner'zhul, and Sylvanas in the upcoming raid. BlueBot spoiler, but during the opening quests, Tyrande saves us and is basically now just spent and back under our care, ready for whatever happens to her next. In our adventures in Korthia, we encounter Nathrazim, and there are some awesome revelations there. More on them later. We free Valkyria and take them back to Odin, who helps us out. We know from the dungeon journal that the final Sylvanas fight takes place at the top of Torghast itself, kind of like Icecrown, and, you know, kind of over Icecrown. And then Sylvanas destroys the tower, destroys the top of Torghast, and we chase the Jailer through the in-between to try and stop him, with Sylvanas trying to stop us stopping him, and Thrall and Jaina trying to stop Sylvanas from stopping us from stopping him. And we know that the action in that final fight takes us to Oribos and the Arbiter's platform, where the Arbiter is. It certainly seems seminal and consequence heavy, and like the whole game is going to be very, very different from 9.2 onwards. And yes, you know that is definitely one that needs its own entire speculation video, and don't you worry, because that is going to happen very, very soon. Basically, there's a really focused feeling of building to a climax in Chains of Domination that I didn't really feel at all in BFA, let alone in the 0.1 patch. And so far, that has been enough to hold me for my first week of pre-patch and keep me very entertained and interested. The gameplay is just fine, but it's the story and the atmosphere that has got me hooked so far. How long that's going to last depends. Only you know how relevant a criticism that is to what you like about the game. I can only speak for myself here. That is a very subjective criticism. Objectively, for a 0.1 patch, Chains of Domination is massive, just in terms of how much is in it. In terms of day-to-day play, there's already loads more than 7.1 or 8.1. Although I worry that the long wait for the patch and the fact that tonally it being reminiscent of a typical 0.2 means that people will rather compare it to 7.2 or 8.2 in their minds, where it understandably doesn't fare so well. And this is just the opening week of questing that I've been talking about here. There is a lot more to see in this opening build, which can tell us a lot more about what we can expect.
This first PTR build tells us a lot that we didn't know about Chains of Domination without the need for data mining. And here's what we've found so far. Flying will unlock in the 4 Covenant zones as part of the Covenant campaign. We can tell looking at the new renown levels that there are 6 new chapters of Covenant campaign, with the last being at chapter 59, which had the player base and Wowhead making the educated guess that Memories of Sunless Skies, the account-bound item that unlocks flying, will be awarded on the completion of all the campaign quests, which would be around 7 weeks into the new patch, which, you know, I'll be honest, I was expecting it to be the Renown 80 reward, so that was a pleasant surprise for me and the entire player base, who celebrated not only getting flying a patch sooner than in other expansions, but also finally being able to put a circle in their calendars for the very day that, no, it was a shit show, obviously.
Instead, fix the problems in the game, they decided to create more as usual. They sold the Expo unfinished. That's the only reason for this in my eyes. It's 7 weeks of subs after all. The main purpose of the game is to keep you playing as long as possible. Wow, 7 weeks! I got flying in 3 weeks in 8.2. Thanks, casual. You just F us all. How Blizzard makes decisions. How can we keep the players subbed? How can we annoy the players more? How can we make the game less fun? Blizzard is taking the piss.
I'm not going to get into whether these complaints are justified or not, because actually they're irrelevant, as Jeremy Fiesel clarified soon afterwards on Twitter that actually flying would be awarded after completing the first chapter of the Covenant campaign at Renown 44 in the 2nd week of the patch, and also that we'd be able to fly in Orbos. No, sorry, that's a joke. You can't fly in Orbos for some unknown reason, making it the first hub city since ever where you can't. Speaking of renown, there appear to be rewards that give players increased anima rewards from world quests, very welcome, as well as 4 new rows on each soulbind tree and 4 new empowered conduit slots on each tree, all unlocked over the 40 new levels of renown. We think that empowered conduit slots are going to increase the item level of the conduit you have equipped, and if you're thinking, wow, that sounds tricky to balance, well friend, let me introduce you to Covenant-specific legendaries. Signaling that not only are Blizz not pulling the ripcord, they are hiding the ripcord in a really safe place where no one will ever find it, as the new legendaries interact with your class-specific Covenant ability. There are bound to be a couple that are OP as a result. I'm looking at you, Convoke. I don't care how nerfed boomkins are. But I'd expect the majority to be below Bis. A legendary that interacts more naturally with the most powerful parts of your rotation is almost always going to be more useful. We have seen the Dungeon Journal with some of the models of the new bosses and some very interesting Dungeon Journal entries, including what Tally was talking about earlier in the BlueBot Spoilers section, but also on Sylvanas' loot table, which drops a bow and quiver back piece, which both have special hunter-only effects, and like, really good ones too. The bow replaces your kill shot with Wailing Arrow, which does AoE damage and stuns lesser enemies, and the quiver triggers a cone attack every 5 shots. Now, look, I'm a hunter, okay? So I appreciate I'm very biased here. So I asked Tally what he thought of this.
Oh yeah, this is absolutely awesome. I love shit like this. Good stuff.
So that's proper, official, unbiased truth right there. This is awesome, and hunters are awesome. Not you, survival, no bow and quiver for you. Sylvanas also drops a trinket called Old Warrior's Soul, which has an orc face icon, and well, look, I'm really sorry, but it's obviously Saurfang. Sylvanas keeps Saurfang's soul with her, and your strength class is going to loot it, and even if it's really good, which it better be, at some point in the future, you're not going to have enough space in your bags, and you're going to disenchant Saurfang. And you might be saying, no, Evitel, I would never disenchant Saurfang, but I think we both know that one day you definitely will, or at the very least, accidentally sell him to a vendor. I guess that's better. Blizz, we need a quest line to get Saurfang out of that trinket. We also got our first look at raid testing this week too, and the environments in the Sanctum of Domination. And it looks like Torghast, but like a really awesomely lit Torghast. You know how all the mob baddies have even bigger armor now and it's gold? Like the jailer just blinged up his army to show how much more badass they are now? That's basically the Sanctum of Domination. It's Torghast, but the jailer is hoping to bring a date back later, so he put on his nice lamps. And Bolvar, Thrall, and Janar are here, and I like it when the gang all gets together, you know? Testing on the Terragru confirmed that players will each pick 4 anima powers before the fight, which don't appear to include class-specific powers, but which does include lumbering form, which makes you twice as big and knocks your fellow raid members out of the way. And then at the last 10% of the boss's health, you lose the anima powers and become super squishy, and it's a big DPS check, I guess, as to whether you can finish off the Gru before he finishes off you. It's exactly the kind of dumb shit we were hoping for in this fight, and I approve. We also found out that all of Kael'thas Sunstrider's voice lines in the entire game have been re-recorded and replaced in 9.1. As in, all of them, new and old. The reasons for this are obvious and pretty unfortunate, not really the kind of thing I want to be talking about here, and something you can clarify for yourself pretty easily with a quick internet search, but it's a notable update and we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't mention it. I'm looking forward to the next PTR build where all Kael'thas in-game models have been replaced by Tignataro. There's also the new individual shoulder transmog options, and also all the many new mounts in the mount journal to talk about, but yeah, that's definitely needs its own video subject, and that particular video will be coming out like probably the day after this one. We love talking about mounts.
So that's what anyone can see in the PTR, but there's more waiting just below the surface, which is where our old friend Wowhead and their data mining comes in, giving us the scoop on all of the new stuff that definitely won't change at all between now and the game going live. Nuh-uh. Like eyeglasses? Just gonna look at those for a second. And weapon models! Just gonna look at those for a bit. But also important in-game systems, which depending on how they end up working, might have a big impact on the rewards that all the daily questing and gameplay of the patch gives us. It's important stuff, and if this ends up being an especially long PTR, as Ian suggested that it might, then this stuff will be why. So the PvP gear that's being data mined, that increases its item level by 13 when used in PvP, is in the data, we can find it, it's just not visible or testable in-game yet. Maybe it'll never make it. Maybe it'll already be much changed by the time that Blizz even put it up for testing. Maybe it'll be exactly the same. It's not something that Blizz have decided to actually show us yet, and any reaction to it as news should bear that in mind. But it'll be a good change as far as I'm concerned, means there'll be a lot less raiders stumbling through arenas blindly, ruining everyone's fun. I would hereby like to apologise for ruining everyone's fun this season. Likewise, the new Torghast changes that have been found. Now, we know from a previous interview with Ian that the Tower of the Damned is undergoing a big rework in 9.1, but we don't know what form that's going to take exactly yet. Wowhead have data mined new score-based spells, which they think are for Torghast, which also mention score streaks. and timers, score orbs that restart the timer. And yeah, if that all sounds a bit like Road Rash to you, then congratulations, you are as old as me. And also, remember what I said about not forming too strong an opinion based on data mining alone? Yeah, I think that's especially important here. There's also the question of how rewards would work with the new Torghast Torfurious gameplay. We know from data mined strings that currently the two new ranks of legendary, item levels 250 and 265, will not need any extra soul ash to make. Instead, apparently relying on the Vestige of Origins, a regen which is crafted using 20 Progenian fragments, which you remember I mentioned you occasionally get as a daily reward on Korthia earlier. And whether these will also drop in the new speedrunning Torghast, or whether that will now basically just be something players need to do to craft new legendaries from scratch, and the data mined and rather splendidly named Mega Soul Ash might turn out to be a useful catch-up mechanic there, and what this will do to the economy remains to be seen when Blizz let us see it. But I get the feeling these things might end up being quite expensive, so maybe a good idea to hang on to whatever gold you have, or better yet, get your professions in order, scrub. Yes, I'm literally telling you to get a job. There are the new data mined Shards of Domination gems that might drop from the raid, might only be equipable on special, I guess, domination touched gear from the raid, and which might only be usable in the raid. And that's a lot of mites, isn't it? Because we have no idea. It's data mining. These could be exactly what I just described, or completely different, or nothing at all. But the absorption effect on the healer gem seems pretty powerful. And speaking of raid gear, how would you feel about the return of bonus rolls? Because some strings relating to those have been found too, which, bonus rolls are not something that I miss at all. And I say that despite the low drop rates in Shadowlands, and as someone who still hasn't got my chest piece from Stone Legion Generals, which, and I don't want to go on about this, but which does suck and is clearly broken. Like, it's clearly some kind of broken bug in this stupid broken game, because obviously I should have had my Stone Legion Generals chest drop by now. And the fact that I haven't is a clear sign that someone, definitely not me, has absolutely dicked up somewhere along the line. Anyway, even then, I still prefer life without bonus rolls, and I don't expect most of you to agree with that, but that's okay, because it's pointless expressing an opinion on it yet anyway, because it's not even in the PTR. It's just data mining, you know? Here's some pictures of the new dungeon, Tazavesh, which looks like a Moroccan bazaar. It's awesome. I'm all over this shit, but there'll be plenty of time to talk about that when it's actually playable in the PTR. Do you want some REDBOT spoiler bots? Because man, do I want some REDBOT spoiler bots. It's REDBOT spoiler bot time, guys. Remember those Dreadlords that I showed you earlier in the BlueBot because they were in the questing and the PTR? Here's some absolute baller, less naked Dreadlords that have been data mined, along with a storyline featuring Mal'Ganis, which ends with a revelation that all Nathrazim serve Denathrius, and always have. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wow, Taliesin, I remember in that video that you made in May last year where you pointed out the apparent links between Denathrius and the Dreadlords and speculated that Denathrius had essentially sired the Nathrazim as a race, and everyone called you a clickbait idiot clickbaiter until September that year when that journal dropped on the alpha and everyone realised that there were indeed strong links between the Dreadlords and the Shadowlands. You must be feeling pretty happy with yourself right now, pretty vindicated. And, well, you know me, internet, I don't like to brag, and honestly, what I said wasn't even all that clever. And honestly, any other creator could have said the exact same speculation when I said it back in May. I mean, they didn't. They all said it 4 months later in September instead. But I probably just got lucky. Lucky by being born cleverer than everyone else. It's no big deal is what I'm saying, and I wish you hadn't even brought it up. But yes, it does definitely look like I was right, and that's the last you'll hear about it this episode. I can't help it, I just really love Dreadlords, and I am super excited to have them back and so important in the story. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to have a follow-up to that initial video, now that all my speculation has pretty much been confirmed. Oh, and that is definitely on the needs its own video pile. Let's move on. The fact that Garrosh Hellscream features in the Soul Render Dormazane fight in Sanctum of Domination isn't a REDBOT spoiler really, because it's right there in the dungeon guide on the PTR, but it felt a bit bigger than a BlueBot, and we take these spoilers very seriously, okay? And also, finally, for now, the true identity of the Rune Carver. Are you ready? Because I'm going to reveal it right now. And I think when I tell you who it is, some of you are actually going to be a little bit... No, it's the Primus. The Primus is the Rune Carver, just like we all knew. I'm really sorry if you were hoping for a big old twist on that one. It's not happening. The Rune Carver is clearly, obviously, the Primus. Or rather, was clearly, obviously, the Primus. Now is 100% confirmed to be the Primus. Except it's data mining, so it would be wrong to say it's 100% confirmed because it could change. But look, they've got the same voice actor, and this is the Primus model. Whether it's going to be used in a flashback, or whether he'll magic himself back into looking like this when you finally work out how to free his other arm, who knows? I do think it's kind of cool that they've clearly used that old jailer concept art that they apparently didn't end up using for the jailer. Yeah, it's cool, I like it. I'm sorry, I'm still in shock. I think I just need to sit down. I am sitting down. I can't believe the Rune Carver is the Prime. Oh, so much PTR. There's PTR stuff coming out all the time. Every day. Every second of every day. They've just like data mined some experience strings that they think might be connected to Torghast, so it looks like you might be able to level some alts through Torghast.
I'm totally going to do that.
That's what you're going to do, is it?
100%.
Going through, you're like, I wasn't going to level any alts, but now I know I can take it through my favourite content, Torghast. Wow, think how many max level legendaries you're going to have.
I know, because I definitely have one.
You're lying in our news show. Imagine lying in the news show. Imagine undermining our journalistic integrity like that.
I just can't bring myself to do it. I just can't bring myself to finish it.
Disgusting. Well, I mean, yeah, and more besides, the PTR at the moment is something we didn't mention actually, is an absolute buggy mess as well. Like this patch is not coming out anytime soon. Like there's this really good bug where sometimes if you start zooming out from your character, it just goes into an overhead view and doesn't stop zooming out.
Amazing.
So like
it's like a nightmare.
Yeah, totally. And it goes up to the very top of the skybox. So and it takes about 20 minutes and you can't stop it, and it just it just like pans out until you're just like in the sky, and it's quite nice because it feels like you're flying in the mall. And also it's terrible because you can't play the game. Proper news that we didn't talk about because we were too busy talking about the PTR. The Slime Serpent mount has been discovered. My
favorite model for
Is
mounts.
it? Is it?
Yes, I have all of them.
You're just full of lies today. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch your section just to make sure you're actually even telling any truth at all, because you're just a big liar.
Yeah. Oh, I hate those mounts.
I know you do. That's why I know you were lying. Okay, so I'm not a great fan of the Slime Serpent mount either, but, you know, it's always cool when a secret gets discovered, and it was like a really straightforward, simple secret as well. There was no, like, clues to follow or, like, mysteries to unravel. All you got to do to get the Slime Serpent mount, which I know you do, I know you want it, is you just got to solo the last 2 bosses in Plagueful on Mythic.
Oh, I mean, why didn't anyone think of that as you're just doing your regular, I'm gonna solo my favorite dungeon run?
Another lie, because I know that you hate that dungeon. So many I can't even... so it's discovered by accident. Just some hunter was in there, like, killing bosses. I was like, oh, nice. Slime Serpent, excellent. And how cool would that be if you're, like, as that hunter was, if you were just sitting in Oribos on your Slime Serpent, knowing full well that you were the only person in the entire game to have that mount at that moment.
That is a pretty good feeling.
Man, the fun I would have had when people asked me how I got the mount and the answers I would have come up with. And I'd have phoned Wowhead and I'd been like, I found out how to get the Slime Serpent mount. And they'd all been like, what? No way, that's amazing. And they'd be like, tell us how to get it. And I'd been like, no.
Oh.
I would have said it on the weekly reset instead. So you can only get it if you're like a hunter or a tank right now. But
oh no,
yeah,
that's sad times.
Lies, because you're a hunter. You don't care about those non-hunter. The girl queen. 10 lies will she tell you in the sofa section of the weekly reset. My God, I think we better finish before like you just make up some other complete lies.
We're not even sitting on the sofa.
Lies! Don't believe her. Like, we've established what a liar Evertell is. We absolutely are sitting on the sofa. Look, you can see it behind us where we're sitting. My goodness, this is disgusting. This episode has to finish right now. Of course, you can join us for all of the new PTR stuff as it hits. My guess is about an hour after this episode goes live.
That's how it works, right?
That's why I'm working extra hard to get this video out.
Rain dance.
So the PTR... But you can join us on our stream. We have The Grind in the morning, UK time, which is the 2 of us.
On Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays.
We have my afternoon streams, which are usually like Monday, Tuesdays. And Thursdays we have WoW Killer. And then usually Wednesday, Fridays is your afternoon streams. So, oh my goodness, so much going on. Wow. But thank you for joining us today for this episode.
Yeah.
If you did like it, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make all of our videos happen. And guys, Guys, thank you
we
so
owe you
much.
big time.
Oh, tell me about it. We were sleeping last night, and I felt this murmur next to me in the bed, and just Evertel rolled over and gave me a little poke, and I was like, oh, what is it? Go back to sleep. And she's like, I can't sleep because I'm just so excited about all of the cool Patreon content that we're going to make. And I was like, what is this fever dream? And she was like, no, really. And I was like, okay. And I believed her at the time, but now I know what a big liar you are.
It's true. But yeah, no, we're going to do some office walkthroughs. We're going to do some Q&As. We're going to do all the good stuff.
And then I woke up. But no, thank you guys. You're amazing. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Laced TV. No, my name is Taliesin from me.
And me, Evertel.
And Anirin too. Until next time, cheerio.